Could it be that the very relationships you cherish are silently slipping away? You pour your heart into friendships, you believe you're doing everything right, yet something feels off. That growing distance, the subtle change in dynamics, it's a feeling many know, a quiet sorrow of connection lost. But what if the reason isn't a flaw in your character, but a misunderstanding of a few profound yet simple truths about human nature? Today, we're diving deep into the timeless wisdom of Dale Carnegie, the legendary master of human relations, whose insights reveal the unseen forces that either build or break our most precious bonds. Prepare to uncover the subtle habits that could be pushing people away and discover the powerful principles that draw them in like a magnet. By the end of this video, you won't just understand why some connections fade, you'll possess the very keys to forging friendships that last a lifetime. Don't let another valuable relationship slip through your fingers. Stick around until the very end to capture every piece of advice. And while you're here, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss out on insights that can genuinely transform your life. The silent killer of friendships, criticism. If I were to pinpoint one single habit, a quiet, insidious force that relentlessly erodes the bedrock of any friendship, it would undoubtedly be criticism. Whether it manifests as a casual, almost throwaway comment about how someone should have responded to a text message more promptly, or a more pointed complaint about their life choices, their appearance, or their perceived failures, each instance of criticism, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, acts like a tiny, almost imperceptible crack in the very foundation of trust and goodwill that binds people together. And tragically, when these tiny cracks accumulate, when they multiply over time and remain unaddressed, the entire structure of the friendship inevitably begins to crumble until it finally collapses. Now let me be absolutely clear. I am not imparting this wisdom from some lofty moral pedestal, as if I have never indulged in the unfortunate habit of criticism myself. Far from it. I share this truth with you simply because, in the grand scheme of human relations, criticism profoundly and unequivocally fails to work. Years ago, I delved into the compelling story of Two Gun Crowley, a notorious criminal who terrorized New York City. This man was a murderer, a kidnapper, a ruthless assailant who defied law enforcement with an almost theatrical audacity. When he was finally cornered and captured after a violent shootout that engulfed an entire block of the city, surrounded by hundreds of policemen and detectives, what were his final defiant words as he was led away? He famously declared, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one." Think about the sheer audacity, the profound self-deception in that statement. Even a man like Crowley, whose life was a tapestry of violence and transgression, could not perceive the wrong in his own actions. He saw himself as a victim of circumstance, a good man driven to desperate measures. If a character of such extreme depravity, a man who inflicted such suffering upon others, was utterly incapable of seeing fault in his own conduct, what realistic hope do we possess of changing others by merely pointing out their flaws? The plain, undeniable truth is this: criticism, by its very nature, immediately puts people on the defensive. It triggers a primal urge to protect one's ego, to justify one's actions, to erect barriers against perceived attack. It wounds pride, that tender and fragile part of the human spirit, and it inevitably provokes a deep-seated resentment. You may, in fact, be absolutely correct in your assessment. Your logic might be impeccable, your observations perfectly accurate. But when you choose to criticize, the emotional and relational cost of that action is almost invariably far higher than any potential benefit you might hope to gain. The person you criticize will not suddenly see the error of their ways and thank you for your insightful correction. Instead, they will likely feel embarrassed, hurt, misunderstood, and above all, resentful. They will remember the sting of your words long after they forget the specific point you were trying to make. So if you've been in the habit of correcting your friends, meticulously pointing out their mistakes, or grumbling incessantly about what they failed to do, you are, perhaps unknowingly, actively pushing them away, creating a chasm in your connection where once there was closeness. This destructive pattern, though often subtle, is a powerful force that silently dismantles the very bonds you cherish, the power of genuine appreciation. Having acknowledged the corrosive nature of criticism, let us now turn our attention to its profound antithesis, the transformative power of genuine appreciation. This is a principle that Abraham Lincoln, a man whose wisdom shaped a nation, learned through bitter personal experience. In his youth, Lincoln, with a sharp pen and an even sharper wit, once penned a scathing letter publicly condemning a political opponent. He then made the fateful decision to have this letter published. The recipient of his vitriol was so utterly enraged, so deeply insulted by Lincoln's public attack, that it very nearly escalated into a duel, a deadly confrontation that could have ended Lincoln's life and changed the course of history. That harrowing incident served as a stark, unforgettable lesson for the young Lincoln. From that day forward, he ceased criticizing others, whether in public or in private. He understood that such attacks, while perhaps momentarily satisfying, ultimately serve only to alienate and inflame. There is a fundamental, almost universal reason why people are naturally drawn to those who make them feel good about themselves. It is not, as some cynics might suggest, about mere flattery. There is a world of profound difference between shallow flattery and heartfelt appreciation. Flattery, by its very nature, is insincere. It is a thinly veiled attempt at manipulation. It rings hollow because it lacks authenticity. But appreciation, that is something entirely different. True appreciation is heartfelt. It arises from a genuine recognition of the effort someone has expended, the positive intent behind their actions, the inherent goodness or unique qualities you perceive within them. It is an acknowledgement of their worth, their contribution, their very being. And let me assure you, this sincere recognition is something that every single human being craves more deeply than they crave food or shelter. It fulfills a fundamental psychological need to be seen, valued, and understood. Consider the remarkable example of Charles Schwab, one of the greatest business leaders of his era. He was the first person in American business to earn $1 million a year, not because he was an unparalleled technical genius, but because he possessed an almost magical ability to inspire people. He did not lead his vast workforce through fear, through a barrage of harsh orders, or through constant nitpicking. On the contrary, he led by giving praise, generous praise, profoundly sincere praise, and wonderfully specific praise. When Schwab observed a worker doing something commendably well, he didn't merely offer a silent nod of approval and then move on, lost in his own thoughts. Instead, he would pause, engage directly, and say something like, "That's a fine job you're doing there, young man. That kind of initiative is precisely what we need in this company." Simple words, perhaps, yet these seemingly modest expressions of genuine appreciation inspired a depth of loyalty and an eagerness to excel that went far beyond any financial incentive. His employees felt valued, seen, and recognized for their individual contributions, and that feeling fueled their dedication. Now pause for a moment and ask yourself with complete honesty, when was the last time you genuinely told a friend what you deeply appreciated about them? Not just a casual, generic, "you're awesome," but something real, something specific, something that truly resonated with their unique qualities. Perhaps it was something like, "I really admire how you always listen so patiently without ever judging, no matter how trivial my problem seems." Or, "You made me feel truly seen today, and I honestly needed that more than you know." These are not mere compliments. They are profound emotional deposits into the friendship account. They are investments in the emotional capital of your relationships. When appreciation becomes not just an occasional act, but a deeply ingrained habit, a fundamental part of your interaction with others, something extraordinary happens. People will naturally want to be around you. They won't seek your company because you are actively trying to impress them, but rather because you consistently make them feel genuinely valuable, appreciated, and understood. This consistent validation fosters an environment of trust and affection, ensuring your friendships endure and flourish. Invest in the emotional account of your friendships. Following on from the power of genuine appreciation, let us delve deeper into the strategic wisdom of investing in the emotional account of your friendships. Think of your relationships not just as casual interactions, but as dynamic, living entities that require constant nourishment. Much like a financial account requires deposits to grow and thrive. Every genuine act of appreciation, every moment of sincere listening, every thoughtful gesture, every kind word, these are not just fleeting exchanges. They are powerful emotional deposits into the collective bank account of your friendship. Conversely, Every critical comment, every instance of dismissiveness, every failure to acknowledge or appreciate, these are emotional withdrawals, chipping away at the built-up capital of goodwill and trust. The concept is simple, yet its implications are profound. When you consistently make these positive deposits, you build a robust reserve of goodwill. This reserve acts as a buffer against life's inevitable bumps and disagreements. When a minor misunderstanding arises or a moment of tension occurs, the strong emotional balance in the account helps to absorb the shock, preventing the relationship from derailing. Your friend is more likely to extend grace, to assume positive intent, and to remember the numerous times you made them feel valued rather than dwelling on a single moment of discord. Consider the practical application of this. It's about being proactive in recognizing the good. Instead of waiting for a grand occasion, cultivate a habit of noticing the small, everyday efforts and virtues of your friends. Did they go out of their way to help you, even in a minor way? Did they offer a thoughtful piece of advice? Did they simply show up when you needed them? Acknowledge it. I really appreciated you taking the time to listen to me vent last night. It meant a lot. It's truly admirable how you always manage to stay calm under pressure. I learn so much from watching you. You always bring such a positive energy to our gatherings. It truly makes a difference. These aren't just polite phrases. They are emotional currency. They communicate, I see you, I value you. Your presence and your actions have a positive impact on my life. When appreciation becomes your default mode of interaction, you are constantly replenishing the emotional reservoirs of your relationships. People are drawn to those who consistently make them feel good about themselves, not in a superficial way, but in a deeply affirming manner. They will naturally gravitate towards you, not because you are trying to impress them, or because you are seeking something from them, but because you intrinsically make them feel valuable, understood, and appreciated. This consistent investment creates a bond of loyalty and affection that is far more resilient and fulfilling than any relationship built on superficial interactions or transactional exchanges. It is the very essence of cultivating deep, lasting, and meaningful friendships that can withstand the test of time and circumstance. The miracle of genuine attention. Here's the plain, unvarnished truth about human beings, a truth often overlooked in our frantic pursuit of connection. We care most about ourselves. This isn't a flaw in our character. It is, quite simply, a fundamental aspect of human nature. From the moment we wake until we drift off to sleep, our minds are predominantly occupied with our own problems, our own desires, our own aspirations, and our own meticulously crafted plans. This self-focus is an evolutionary imperative, designed for survival and personal advancement. So when someone truly extraordinary enters our orbit, someone who genuinely and sincerely cares about us, who takes the time to ask meaningful questions, who listens with an intensity that suggests every word we utter is fascinating, and who astonishingly remembers the small, seemingly insignificant details we've shared, it feels nothing short of a miracle. It's a rare and precious gift in a world teeming with self-absorbed conversations. I recall a profound experience from my younger days that perfectly illustrates this principle. I was traveling on a train, and I found myself seated next to a botanist. Now, I must confess, I possessed absolutely no knowledge whatsoever of his field. The intricacies of plant life, soil composition, or root systems were completely foreign to me. Yet, as he began to speak, I instinctively began to ask questions. Simple questions, perhaps, but they were born of a sincere, genuine curiosity. And then I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't wait for my turn to interject my own opinions or pivot the conversation back to my own interests. I simply listened intently for nearly an entire hour. He spoke passionately about his work, the delicate beauty of rare orchids, the resilience of desert flora, the hidden complexities of mycorrhizal networks. At the end of our journey, as we prepared to part ways, the botanist turned to me, his eyes alight with genuine warmth, and declared, "That was one of the most interesting conversations I've had in months." Why? Why would he say that, considering I barely spoke a dozen sentences during our entire interaction? The answer is simple, yet profoundly powerful. Because I was interested, not feigned interest, not a polite pretense of curiosity while mentally rehearsing my next point. So my interest was authentic, truly genuine, and that, my friends, is the unequivocal key. To cultivate meaningful friendships, to draw people to you like a magnet, you must cultivate the habit of being sincerely curious about people. Don't fall into the common trap of waiting impatiently for your turn to speak. Don't constantly seek to pivot the topic of conversation back to yourself and your own experiences. Instead, make a conscious, deliberate effort to ask them how their day was and truly mean it when you ask. Inquire about their goals, their aspirations, their quiet fears, the things that keep them awake at night, or the passions that ignite their spirit, and listen, truly listen to their answers. This isn't about gaining something from them. It's about recognizing the inherent worth and complexity of another human being. It's about acknowledging that every person carries within them a universe of experiences, thoughts, and feelings, and that by taking the time to explore that universe, you not only enrich your own understanding, but also validate their existence in a deeply meaningful way. When you listen with genuine interest, you are conveying without words, you matter, your thoughts matter, your feelings matter. This profound acknowledgement is the fertile ground upon which true, lasting friendships are sown and nurtured, ensuring that your relationships are built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine human connection. Shift the spotlight from yourself to them. Building upon the profound impact of genuine attention, let's explore its practical application, the deliberate act of shifting the spotlight from your life to theirs. If you find your friendships gradually fading, if the vibrant energy that once characterized your connections seems to be dissipating, a crucial self-assessment is in order. Ask yourself honestly, have you been primarily focused on your friends, their lives, their concerns, their joys and their struggles? Or have your conversations and interactions largely revolved around yourself? The answer to this question often holds the key to revitalizing dormant relationships and deepening existing ones. It's a natural human tendency, as we discussed, to be preoccupied with our own internal world. Our problems, our achievements, our aspirations, they loom large in our minds. However, when this self-focus dominates our interactions, we inadvertently create a subtle barrier between ourselves and others. Conversations become monologues, disguised as dialogues, where one person waits impatiently for their turn to speak about themselves rather than truly engaging with the other. This imbalance, even if unintentional, can leave friends feeling unheard, undervalued, and ultimately emotionally disconnected. They might enjoy your company on a superficial level, but they won't feel the deep bond that comes from being genuinely understood. When you consciously make the effort to shift the spotlight, something truly extraordinary begins to unfold. It starts with simple yet powerful acts of conversational redirection. Instead of immediately sharing your own story when a friend mentions a similar experience, ask them more about their experience. Instead of dominating the conversation with your recent triumphs or woes, gently steer it back to them. That's fascinating. Tell me more about how that affected you. Or, how did you feel when that happened? What are your thoughts on that? This deliberate shift doesn't mean you never share your own life. Healthy friendships are a two-way street where both individuals feel comfortable sharing and listening. The key lies in the balance and the intent. When you consistently prioritize showing interest in others before demanding it for yourself, you create an environment where they feel safe, seen, and truly valued. Think about the profound psychological impact of feeling seen. In a world saturated with information and fleeting connections, the gift of undivided, genuine attention is a rare commodity. When a person feels that you are truly listening, truly interested in their narrative, truly understanding their perspective, they experience a deep sense of validation. They feel their existence matters, their thoughts are important, and their feelings are acknowledged. This feeling of being seen is a powerful magnet. When people feel seen, they instinctively want to stay close. They feel a sense of belonging, a comfort in your presence that makes them seek it out again and again. This principle extends beyond just verbal conversations. It involves remembering details they've shared, following up on their projects or concerns, and genuinely celebrating their successes while offering support during their struggles. It's about making their world, at least for a moment, the most important world in the conversation. By consistently making this choice, by genuinely shifting the spotlight, you don't just maintain friendships, you cultivate an enduring magnetic presence that draws people into a deeper, more meaningful connection, ensuring your relationships are built on mutual understanding and heartfelt appreciation for each other's unique journeys. Navigating disagreements with grace. In the complex tapestry of human relationships, disagreements are not merely inevitable. They are, in fact, an intrinsic part of connection. No two individuals can agree on every single point, every single time. However, the true test of a friendship, and indeed of one's character, lies not in avoiding conflict altogether, but in how one navigates these disagreements with grace and wisdom. This is a subject upon which I elaborated extensively in my book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, where I unequivocally stated a fundamental truth: you can't win an argument. This seemingly paradoxical statement often catches people by surprise. After all, isn't the goal of an argument to emerge victorious, to prove your point, to be declared right? But consider the profound implications of winning an argument. Even if you technically overpower your opponent with superior logic, undeniable facts, or sheer force of will, even if you silence them and leave them with no retort, what is the emotional cost? The answer is simple: you lose. You lose because, in the process of demonstrating your correctness, you have inevitably made the other person feel inferior, foolish, or intellectually diminished. And let me tell you, no one, absolutely no one, enjoys feeling that way. The human ego is a fragile thing, and being publicly or privately defeated in an argument leaves a bitter taste, sowing seeds of resentment and humiliation that can linger far longer than the memory of the topic itself. The win is hollow, achieved at the expense of goodwill and the very relationship you claim to value. One of the finest and most effective ways to avoid pushing people away during a disagreement, to preserve the precious bond of friendship, is to begin with gentleness. Do not, under any circumstances, launch directly into attack mode, adopting a confrontational stance from the outset. This immediately triggers the other person's defenses, shutting down any possibility of open dialogue. Instead, cultivate the habit of approaching a disagreement with humility and an open mind. Start by saying something disarming, something that signals a willingness to collaborate rather than to conquer. Phrases like, "I may be wrong, and I often am. Let's examine the facts together," or "I see things a bit differently, but I'm open to understanding your perspective more fully," or even, "Perhaps I'm not seeing the full picture here. Could you help me understand your point of view?" This approach instantly disarms the other person. It transforms the entire tone of the interaction from one of confrontation to one of cooperation, from a battle of wills to a shared exploration of understanding. By admitting the possibility of your own error, even if you are convinced you are right, you invite the other person to lower their guard. You are showing respect for their intelligence and their perspective, which makes them far more receptive to hearing your own. Let me share the illustrative story of a man named Patrick O'Hare who managed a freight office. His clerks were constantly embroiled in heated arguments with irate customers. These daily confrontations resulted in lost business, damaged relationships, and a generally tense work environment. After delving into the principles outlined in my book, Patrick decided to implement a radical change. He trained his entire team to adopt a new strategy. They were to begin every potentially contentious conversation by first agreeing with the customer wherever possible, finding any common ground they could, no matter how small. Furthermore, and crucially, they were instructed to let the customer voice their frustrations fully, without interruption or immediate contradiction. They were to listen genuinely and patiently until the customer had completely expressed themselves. The result was nothing short of astonishing. Arguments dropped dramatically. The office environment transformed from one of tension to one of calm and efficiency. And perhaps most importantly, business improved significantly as customers felt heard, respected, and understood, even when their initial grievances couldn't be entirely resolved in their favor. When you extend to others the fundamental dignity of being heard, of having their perspective acknowledged, even when you fundamentally disagree with their conclusions, you actively preserve the relationship. And in the grand scheme of life and human connection, that preservation of a valuable relationship is always more valuable, more enriching, and more lasting than the fleeting satisfaction of winning a trivial point. The true victory lies in maintaining harmony and mutual respect, the sweetest sound of one's own name. Of all the myriad sounds that grace the human ear, from the most exquisite melodies to the most profound pronouncements, there is one that resonates with unparalleled sweetness, one that carries a weight of profound significance unmatched by any other: a person's own name. This fundamental truth is something I have consistently repeated in every lecture hall I have stood in, woven into the fabric of every book I have penned, and emphasized in every private consultation room I have entered. Yet, despite its undeniable power, it remains, paradoxically, one of the most frequently overlooked and undervalued tools in the art of human connection. A name is not merely a label, a convenient tag to identify one individual from another. It is far, far more than that. A person's name is a potent symbol of their identity, their individuality, their very being. It encapsulates their history, their aspirations, their unique place in the world. When you remember, and more importantly, use someone's name in conversation, you are performing an act of profound recognition. You are, in that moment, making them feel seen, acknowledged, and singularly important. It tells them, without words, you are not just another face in the crowd. You are a distinct individual, and I value your presence enough to recognize you specifically. Consider the captivating story I often shared about Jim Farley, a man of humble beginnings who rose to extraordinary heights in American politics. He became the influential chairman of the Democratic National Committee and later served as Postmaster General under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Farley's remarkable success, his ability to build an empire of political influence and loyalty, was often attributed not to his fiery speeches or his intricate policy proposals, but to one astonishing, simple skill. He claimed he could call 50,000 people by their first names. Think about the sheer magnitude of that feat. Imagine meeting Jim Farley, a powerful figure, and having him instantly recall your name, perhaps even a small detail about your last conversation or your family. You would immediately feel a surge of personal significance, a sense of being truly known and valued by someone in a position of power. Do you know what that extraordinary ability did? It made people feel like they mattered, profoundly and unequivocally. It forged a personal bond, a sense of connection that transcended political affiliations or professional hierarchies. Farley built his vast network of influence not through manipulative tricks or catchy slogans, but through this simple yet incredibly powerful art of remembering names. It was a testament to his genuine interest in individuals, and that interest was repaid 1,000-fold in loyalty and support. Therefore, resist the common self-defeating declaration, "Oh, I'm just bad with names." This is not an inherent disability. It is a habit, and like any habit, it can be changed. Instead, make it a conscious, deliberate point to pay attention when someone introduces themselves. Engage your memory actively. Repeat the name back immediately after hearing it. "It's a pleasure to meet you," name. Then, try to associate it with something memorable, a visual image, a rhyming word, or even connect it to another person you know with the same name. If appropriate, jot it down later, perhaps in your mental notes or a physical journal, alongside a brief detail about the person. This seemingly tiny effort, this conscious discipline of remembering and using names, performs an incredible feat. It opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. It instantly fosters a sense of rapport and warmth. It lays the groundwork for lasting friendships. It builds loyalty that withstands the tests of time. Always, always remember this profound truth. People care far more about the sound of their own name than they do about all the titles you carry, all the accolades you've amassed, or all the grand statements you might ever utter. Their name is who they are, and by honoring it, you honor them. The art of listening more, talking less. Let me share a curious truth with you, one that often runs counter to our intuitive understanding of being a good conversationalist. If you genuinely desire to be thought of as brilliant, engaging, and utterly fascinating in conversation, you should paradoxically say less. This isn't about being taciturn or aloof. It's about mastering the profound art of allowing others to talk, to share, and to reveal themselves. The simple, undeniable fact is that people universally love to talk about themselves. They relish the opportunity to recount their struggles, to share their children's triumphs, to articulate their deepest dreams, their most burning passions, and their quietest fears. If you can simply listen genuinely, attentively, and with unfeigned interest, you will, without fail, become utterly irresistible. This strategy is not in any way a form of manipulation. It is at its core respect in action. It is a profound acknowledgement of the other person's inherent value and the richness of their inner world. It communicates far more eloquently than any words you could speak. I value what you have to say. Your experiences are important to me. Your thoughts are worth my full attention. I recall a vivid story that perfectly illustrates this principle. It involved a dinner party where a woman found herself seated next to a man she hardly knew. Throughout the evening, the woman said almost nothing of substance about herself. Instead, she asked genuine questions about his interests, his work, his travels. She listened intently to his answers, nodding with sincere interest, her eyes reflecting her engagement. She provided subtle cues that encouraged him to continue to elaborate. The very next day, that man, utterly captivated by their conversation, approached the host of the party and with genuine admiration declared, "That woman was one of the most brilliant conversationalists I have ever met." The profound irony, of course, was that she had hardly uttered a word about herself. Her brilliance lay not in what she said, but in how she listened. When you give others the gift of allowing them to talk freely about themselves, you are bestowing upon them something incredibly precious, your undivided attention. In a world clamoring for validation, this focused attention is a rare commodity, and in return for this generous gift you receive something invaluable: their trust, their warmth, their admiration, and often their genuine affection. They will leave the conversation feeling heard, understood, and uplifted, and they will associate those positive feelings directly with you. Therefore, consciously resist the urge to impress people with your vast knowledge, your brilliant insights, or your extensive accomplishments. While these qualities may be impressive in other contexts, in the realm of interpersonal connection, they can often inadvertently create a barrier. Instead, strive to impress them not with how much you know, but with how interested you are in them. Ask open-ended questions that invite elaboration. Listen not just for information, but for emotion and underlying meaning. Allow silences to linger, giving the other person space to formulate their thoughts. When you genuinely seek to understand rather than to be understood, when you prioritize their narrative over your own, you unlock a powerful dynamic that transforms mere acquaintances into cherished friends, fostering connections built on mutual respect and genuine heartfelt understanding. Leadership through praise and encouragement. Now let us delve into what I consider to be the fine art of leadership, particularly in the context of influencing the behavior or thinking of others without ever making them feel small, scolded, or resented. This profoundly effective approach begins with a simple yet extraordinarily powerful principle: praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Furthermore, ensure that this praise is always sincere. And when correction is undeniably needed, always begin with appreciation before offering guidance. This method isn't merely a polite social grace, it is a profound understanding of human psychology that enables you to inspire growth and change without triggering the defensiveness and resentment that criticism invariably provokes. Human beings respond fundamentally to encouragement. We thrive on recognition and positive reinforcement. When you praise a person, even for a small step forward, you are doing more than just acknowledging their effort. You are validating their potential, fueling their motivation, and building their confidence. You are in essence giving them a reputation to live up to. When you tell someone you are excellent at X, or I see such great potential in Y, you are planting a seed of possibility within them. They will then strive to embody that reputation, to live up to the positive image you have reflected back to them. This is a far more potent motivator than pointing out flaws, which often leads to feelings of inadequacy and a desire to retreat from the task at hand. Take, for instance, the legendary example of Charles Schwab, whom we've previously discussed in the context of appreciation. Schwab was not only one of the first men in American business to earn $1 million a year, but he also achieved this remarkable success not because he was the most technically brilliant steel engineer or the most shrewd financial strategist. His genius lay in his unparalleled ability to inspire people. When he observed workers doing something incorrectly or inefficiently, he did not resort to barking orders, issuing threats, or delivering harsh criticisms. That approach might compel temporary compliance, but it would kill initiative and foster resentment. Instead, Schwab might approach a worker who was making a mistake and say something profoundly different. He might begin by acknowledging their effort. "That's a fine job you're doing there, John. I see how hard you're working on this piece." Then gently he would offer guidance, framing it as an opportunity for even greater success. "But I think you could make it even better, more efficient, and perhaps even safer if you tried it this way." He made people feel eager to improve, not terrified of failure. He highlighted their capability and offered a pathway to enhance it, rather than focusing on their shortcomings. He showed them how they could achieve more, not how they had failed to achieve enough. The psychological truth here is profound. People inherently resist change when they feel attacked, when their pride is wounded, or when their competence is questioned. Their natural instinct is to defend their current position, to justify their actions. However, if they feel genuinely valued, respected, and encouraged, they become remarkably receptive to suggestions. They will follow your guidance willingly, even eagerly, because they perceive it as an aid to their own growth and success, not as a judgment of their inadequacy. True influence, real and lasting influence, is always earned through encouragement, never through criticism. Criticism may produce immediate superficial compliance rooted in fear, but it never cultivates genuine enthusiasm, initiative, or loyalty. When you lead with encouragement, when you highlight strengths and guide improvements with positive reinforcement, you foster an environment where people feel safe to take risks, to innovate, and to perform at their very best. That is how you lead effectively, profoundly and humanely, without leaving behind a trail of resentment or diminishing the spirit of those you aim to guide. It is the path to building not just productive teams, but truly devoted individuals who feel valued and inspired to reach their full potential. So, here we are, having journeyed together through these invisible yet profoundly powerful rules of human nature, insights meticulously observed and distilled over a lifetime of dedicated study. We've explored how to become genuinely liked, how to truly win hearts, and how to wield influence not as a weapon, but as a compassionate tool, without ever causing injury or resentment. It is crucial to internalize that these are not mere tricks, not fleeting psychological manipulations designed for superficial gain. On the contrary, these are time-honored, universally tested, and enduringly true principles. They tap into the deepest currents of human motivation and connection, working because they align with the fundamental truths of our shared existence. Let me leave you with this singular, overarching thought, a core understanding that, if truly embraced and lived, has the power to transform every single one of your relationships into something extraordinary and unforgettable. If you take away just one profound realization from our time together, let it be this, etched firmly into your consciousness. People are not creatures of logic. They are creatures of emotion. We may pride ourselves on our rationality, our analytical minds, and our ability to reason, but at our core, our decisions, our reactions, and our connections are predominantly driven by how we feel. We respond to warmth, to validation, to understanding, to kindness, to respect, and to genuine interest. We recoil from criticism, from dismissal, from coldness, and from feeling unseen or unheard. And if you remember that, if you genuinely live that truth in your daily interactions, if you allow this understanding to permeate your every conversation and gesture, you will, without a shadow of a doubt, become an unforgettable presence in the lives of others. Therefore, do not aim to be impressive. The pursuit of impressiveness often stems from a self-focused desire to be admired, which paradoxically can push others away. Instead, aim to be interested. Cultivate a profound and authentic curiosity about the unique universe contained within every person you meet. Listen with your whole being. Ask questions that invite them to share their passions and vulnerabilities. Do not strive to be loud, to dominate conversations, or to always be the center of attention. Such efforts often mask insecurities and overshadow others. Instead, strive to be kind. Let your actions and your words be infused with genuine warmth, empathy, and consideration for the feelings of others. Offer sincere appreciation, extend grace in disagreements, and remember the simple power of a name. And when you consistently apply these timeless principles, when you choose interest over impressiveness and kindness over loudness, something truly magnificent will unfold. Not only will people naturally like you, drawn in by the positive emotions you evoke, but they will also come to profoundly respect you, recognizing the depth of your character and the authenticity of your approach. They will trust you, knowing that your intentions are honorable and that you genuinely care. And most beautifully, they will instinctively want to walk alongside you on their journey through life, seeing you not just as an acquaintance, but as a cherished friend, a trusted confidant, and an enduring source of positive human connection. Your life and the lives of those you touch will be immeasurably richer for it.